transit bus that takes people back to different lots and in the town, and people looking for it here. It would have been nice if they'd have had it somewhere other than where we do these buses, but only have so much room. My name's Jack Drummond. I'll be your guide here for the next couple of hours. Probably guessed I'm not from Pennsylvania by now. I'm from Atlanta, Georgia. Anybody else from the South? Oh, look at all of us.
Daddy.
Whereabouts? Texas?
Louisiana.
Louisiana? Virginia? Awesome. We're still outnumbered. We're going to give it our best. I always tell people from the South, we still lose. I just try to make it sound better. That means everybody else on the bus would have been trying to kill me here 152 years ago, so I have to be careful what I'm saying, right? Anybody get a chance to see the Sakurama painting?
Oh, yeah.
Awesome, isn't it?
Yep.
Wow.
Definitely worth it. Anyone ever see the one in Atlanta?
Nope.
Yeah, it's nice. I don't think it's as nice as this one, but what they did a few years ago down there when they restored it, they put stadium seating in it. So the whole platform rotates slowly while they're doing the program, so you can see the painting.
I thought that's what
A lot of people say they think they kept waiting for that one to move, but it never does.
Yeah.
It takes too long.
Yeah.
And we get a whole lot more visitors here than they do at the one in Atlanta. Well, folks, what I always like to open the tour with is a kind of a description as to how it evolved from a horrible battlefield to such a great place to visit. Remember, the war was fought from 1861 to 1865. The Battle of Gettysburg was July 1st, 2nd, and 3rd of 1863. Excuse me. Early the next year, in 1864, local people living here said, hey, you know what? This is really important. What happened right in our own backyard. We should do something to preserve this place. So they formed a group called the Gettysburg Battlefield Memorial Association, and they literally started buying the battlefield with their own money while the war was still going on. Isn't that amazing to have the foresight to do that? Just think if they had, that could be a Walmart. That's what happened in Atlanta. There's hardly anything to see down there from the key battles there in 1864. And I think the fall of Atlanta is what ensured President Lincoln's re-election victory in 1864. So that group had help from the Union veterans. They were called the GAR, the Grand Army of the Republic. They helped them raise money for land, but then they also started putting monuments in honor of the men that fought here. So many of the Union monuments, those are the guys from the North, I'll call them Union and Yankees, their monuments date back into the late 1800s. They're really awesome. Many of them are well over 100 years old, so I hope while you're on my tour today, try to stay oriented. And then you can go back out on your own. The park's open until 10 o'clock at night. You can walk around, look at the monuments. I guarantee you'll find something neat on just about every one of them. Now, in 1895, that's when Congress passed a law making this a national military park. That's what it is today. So the War Department controlled it from 1895 to 1933. That's when the Park Service took over. The War Department's goal, make this a giant outdoor classroom where soldiers and cadets from West Point could come here to study the battle. We still have thousands of them here every year. About a month ago, there was 3 buses from West Point when I was out doing tours. We kept bumping into them. Really nice kids. Not just men anymore either, is it? A lot of females in the military today. So the War Department would put 5 towers on the field. 3 of them still stand, so those cadets and soldiers had a higher platform to study the battlefield. They also brought cannons out of storage. Almost all the cannon barrels on this battlefield are real barrels from the war. Wheels and carriages are reproductions. They would have been made mostly of wood back then. They would have rotted. So I'll describe how they fired them for you after a while. A lot of people are surprised when I tell them this. Artillery in this war could fire up to 2 miles. It's a modern war with old-fashioned tactics we'll be describing. Now, since the Park Service took over, of course, their number one thing is to protect the place. But now in the last few years, they're really trying to become more involved in restoring it to looking like it did during the battle. And a lot of people are surprised when I tell them this, but Gettysburg today versus 1863, there's a lot more trees now than there were then. This was a farming community, so it's much more open than it is today. And where there were woods, you wouldn't have the dense undergrowth we have now, because that's where the cattle would have been grazing. So generally speaking, fewer trees, and where it was wooded, more open. They had to have some trees growing, though, didn't they? Fences, firewood, building materials, they needed all that. Now, we just turned left onto the Baltimore Pike. If we'd have turned right at the light, in 52 miles, we'd be in Baltimore, Maryland. Remember, guys, we're only 75 miles from Washington, D.C. Imagine Abraham Lincoln in 1863. He's nervous, isn't he? These southern boys, especially those crazy ones from Louisiana, you got to really watch out for them, and those Texans, too. So everybody's worried, especially the 200 free blacks living in Gettysburg in 1863. Now, guys, here's what I consider to be the key position of the whole Union Army's position during the course of the battle, Cemetery Hill. already known as Cemetery Hill because of this cemetery you see, the town cemetery, the Evergreen. This was established back in 1854. The more famous cemetery is over the top of the hill, the Soldiers National Cemetery. That's where they reinterred soldiers from the battlefield to that better final resting place. That's the one that Abraham Lincoln dedicated later that year with the Gettysburg Address. Now here's some of the cannons and monuments we'll be talking about. There's my favorite Union general on horseback, Winfield Scott Hancock. Does a great job rallying the defeated Union Army here at the end of the first day. Shipped them around on the second. His men defended Pickett's charge on the third, too. Now, the next general, not quite as good. Oliver Otis Howard there on horseback. His initials were O.O. His critics called him Didn't do so well. After the war, he was in charge of the Freedmen's Bureau, assimilating the 4 million free slaves into society. He founded Howard University, black college down in Washington. So guys, try to picture Cemetery Hill in 1863, virtually treeless. A great place for cannons, and not nearly the number of buildings we have out here now. The town ended in front of us in 1863, just a sprinkling of buildings out here. One of which is that one right on your right. That's where the only civilian was killed, a young girl named Jenny Wade. Jenny had left her home in town to stay with her sister there, who had had a baby. Jenny made the mistake of being upstairs on the third morning of the battle. A stray rebel bullet went through 2 doors and killed her. The doors are still there, so are the bullet holes. That's a neat place to visit if you have time later here. Now the town ended in front of us about 100 yards, so the town had been in front of us, behind us more open. Look to your left behind this evergreen tree. There's a red brick building behind it. Look at the wall right behind the silver light pole. You can see white pock marks. Those are bullet scars from the battle.
Oh, yeah.
So that's the edge of town. There's a little plaque to the left of the door. It says Civil War Building, July 1863. So that would tell you which buildings were here and which ones weren't. This is not looking good, Ron. This is backed up worse than it was before. Yeah, I agree. Let's do that, and then we'll just go out. Can you cut through the college still? Just down?
Yeah, I'll cut through the college.
Okay, let's just do that. Like I said, guys, this is a busy weekend. We got lucky on our first bus. We found a spot on Little Round Top. We'll be really lucky to get one on this trip. The place is going to be crazy out here today. Lot 3 behind the building was already full when I came back. So that's good. We want people to be here. But that's why I encourage you, go back to Little Round Top later just in case we don't get to the top part of it. We'll get out somewhere. May not be as very crest. Now, Gettysburg in 1863 had about 2,000 people living here. Today there's only about 7,000 because the battlefield basically surrounds the town. It's kept it from growing. 2,000 then, about 7,500 today. You can see over the top of the cars here, hopefully most of you, there's a white clock tower. That's the county courthouse. That was built back in 1859. So just like then, today Gettysburg is the county seat of Adams County. I think it's really cool that they already had 2 colleges here in 1863. That's pretty impressive for a town of 2,000 people, don't you think? One was a Lutheran seminary, still a practicing seminary today. Another was a liberal arts college back then called Pennsylvania College. It's Gettysburg College now. Whenever I see families with little kids, I always tell them, if you want to go to school here, you better go home and save some money. $60,000 a year.
Yes, you ain't going there, buddy.
I hear you. Now look to your left where the stroller is. The flag's flying from that kind of beigeish building. That's a free museum. And the guy that owns it's really got a bunch of great stuff in there. He's been on American Pickers, if you've ever watched that. Yeah, and that's free. He's got one of Audie Murphy's hats. Remember Audie Murphy, the most decorated soldier in our history? He's got some Band of Brothers stuff in there. He's got a lot of Civil War stuff, of course. He's also got a lot of Kennedy stuff. Because JFK and Jackie visited the battlefield in March of 1963, just a few months before the assassination in Dallas. He's got some really cool photographs of JFK driving a convertible, the guide sitting next to him, one Secret Service agent in the back, and a couple family members. And that was all the security. Of course, Dallas had more, but still not enough. Very rare to see a president here anymore. We were all disappointed that in 2 years ago, for our 150th anniversary, of course we had all kinds of stuff for the battle, but also for the anniversary of the Gettysburg Address. Everybody expected President Obama to come, but he didn't. Which, well, I'm not going to say anything else, but that's what makes, well, that much makes this a great country. We vote.